Each time Casey Robertson tries to access his Facebook group, Utah Citizens Alarm, this is what shows up on his screen.
Just kind of this surreal feeling, especially as information started to roll in, that it wasn't just us.
In a blog post, Facebook administrators wrote they were taking action against Facebook pages, groups, and Instagram accounts tied to offline anarchist groups that support violent acts amidst protests, U.S.-based militia organizations, and QAnon. So far, 790 pages tied to QAnon have been removed. 980 groups identifying with Antifa are gone.
Right off the bat, we were immediately labeled as a white or a racist organization without even anyone talking to me or looking or asking any questions.
At all of the protests they have attended, Robertson says UCA's mission has been to maintain the peace.
We are totally for peaceful protests.
The UCA Facebook group was created 7 weeks ago following the Provo protests that turned violent, and they've shown up at numerous Black Lives Matter protests ever since.
We believe they're a terrorist organization.
Lex Scott, founder of Black Lives Matter in Utah, says having UCA show up armed at protests incites violence.
I saw a girl crying at the last protest. She was afraid. It's just them being there is unneeded.
Having their Facebook page removed for these folks, though, felt like losing their voices.
Talk about oppression. That's pretty oppressed if you think about it. We don't get to say what we want to say.
Attorney David Raymond has practiced law focusing on media and First Amendment rights for 21 years.
This is a common misconception that the First Amendment somehow guarantees someone a right to say anything to anyone in any forum. The First Amendment is a restraint on the power of government.
And even though what Facebook is doing may seem totally unfair to some, Raymond says is still constitutional.
They would be considered private property. So the analogy would be someone invites you into their house and they say, I don't want to talk about politics. And if you start talking about politics, they can ask you to leave. That doesn't violate your First Amendment right.
Just because Facebook kicked us off does not mean that we're finished. In fact, we are solid, we're strong.
UCA plans to move forward with a planned protest this weekend. In Salt Lake County, Aaron Cox, Fox 13 News, Utah.